District Attorney Tim Ward. He's the District Attorney of Tulare County. He also happens to be the president of the California District Attorney's Office, which is the statewide organization for prosecutors in the state of California. We've called you all together today to talk about the case of Timothy Bethel, Winchester, California, Riverside native. Mr. Bethel is engaged in a destructive crime spree across 2 counties, 3 if you count his criminal history, starting from August of 2021 to January of 2023, 17 months of time, and again, as I said, across 2 counties for the most part, committing 37 felonies, of which he was later convicted, targeting and victimizing 22 separate businesses across 2 counties, resulting in thousands of dollars worth of damage. And we want to tell this story today because, frankly, all of us up here on stage have had enough. We cannot protect our public. We're getting no help from Sacramento. The laws don't back us up. And a case like this is the result. And I would love to stand here and tell you that we're having a press conference because the case of Timothy Bethel is so unique and it stands out. But it's the opposite. We called a press conference because the case of Timothy Bethel is common. This is what's happening across California. This is why businesses are closing across our state, and this is why we lead the nation in people fleeing our state. And it can't continue. It's unsustainable for us to continue with the laws the way they're occurring. So to tell the story how it got started, and I'll obviously come back up and tell the rest of it, but I'd like to invite District Attorney Tim Ward to talk about specifically the crimes that occurred starting in Tulare County.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I have to say it's a pleasure to be here again. Thank you, Chief, for allowing us to spend another pleasurable night in your city. To District Attorney Hester and I always enjoy the invitation to come down. However, I do not relish the times when we have to talk about the failures of our criminal justice system on behalf of the victims of not only Tulare County, but this great county as well. So to give some context to the story, I'll kind of narrate it through, but I do want you to know that any member of the media, we've got some documents available. My public information officer is here. We can provide you, and we're happy to do it, a copy of our charging document, our complaint, which actually lists the victims and the dates. Also a statement in aggravation that we have filed with the court. Both documents are public record, and we're happy to provide them to you to kind of give some context of the types of businesses and the overall dates. But just in summary, the crime spree that this career criminal embarked upon ventured into the city of Visalia in Tulare County in the summer of 2021, where he was arrested, subsequently charged, and convicted of 14 felony charges, basically burglary of businesses at night, early morning hours generally, and vandalism to those buildings, which was the mechanism in which he would enter, by damaging, breaking windows and doors to gain entry into them. He was convicted, as I said, in Tulare County and released, as is so common that District Attorney Hester talked about in our state. He was released to a residential treatment program which he immediately absconded from. And within days, he is captured in Tulare County, breaking into yet another business, and he's convicted of that additional felony count as well. So that's September now of 2021. He spends a few months in custody inside Tulare County jails, and then his mandatory supervision, pursuant to Assembly Bill 109 that passed, his mandatory supervision was transferred to the county of Riverside in May of 2022. And I will let District Attorney Hester talk about the events that transpired here in Riverside County, but I will tell you that the crime spree of this criminal did not end in Tulare County. In December of 22, right before Christmas, he broke into and victimized yet another business in the city, downtown Visalia. Continuing on, right after Christmas, he engaged in 9 additional businesses were vandalized and burglarized. He was eventually charged with 20 total crimes in that last case. 17 felonies and a couple of misdemeanors. Those cases in Tulare County, we're talking about over $20,000 in restitution to those victims. That's simply the dollar amount of the amount of money that was taken in the burglaries and the damage to the properties. What's not included in that is the damages to the business and the employees and the lost wages. You know, they had to close right after the holiday period. And again, that's such an unfortunate occurrence across the state. And so let me just say that even though I'm from a county that's just a little over 200 miles away, this case demonstrates a connection, not only working collaboratively with your DA here, but also this case sadly is indicative of life in California in 2023. It epitomizes the dysfunction caused by the passage of soft on crime policies coming out of Sacramento. And this defendant and others like him day in and day out, they prove one thing, that if and when they are allowed to remain free from jail custody, they will victimize and our communities will suffer, both in Tulare County and here in Riverside. The reality of this era is that crime is now factored into the cost of doing business, whether that business is a retail chain or a mom and pop family business downtown. Nearly everyone in California is either living under the tyranny of crime or the fear of crime because of things coming out of Sacramento like AB 109, Proposition 47, Proposition 57. We're all paying the price for these social experiments that are being born on the back of crime victims and law-abiding citizens across this state. Our legislators are causing that. When did California, the land of opportunity, somehow simply become the haven for opportunistic criminals? It seems that in the eyes of the state and the policies coming out of this administration, the victims have suddenly become the least important people inside our courtrooms. Is it too much to demand that in our system of justice, the victims be afforded some right to an authentic truth of justice and a hope of actual accountability and protection in public safety? There's a saying that hope makes for a good breakfast, but for a bad supper. When repeat criminals come through the justice system, it's naive and foolish to continue to put the public at risk, I should say, hoping somehow that this is going to work. We're living in a world where consequences for bad, evil, and dangerous behavior keep getting reduced. Those consequences are being reduced in order to test some hypothesis that crime is somehow not the fault of the criminal. But the only solace that I can tell you that I have here today is that Riverside County is being led through this challenging time by a law enforcement team and a district attorney that I know very well. And I know that they collectively do feel that victims and victims' rights are the most important thing and the reason that we have a system of justice in the first place. So I want to thank you. I'll be around to answer questions at the end, but it's my honor right now to introduce Police Chief Gonzalez. Oh, you're going to come back? Yeah. Excuse me, I'll repeat that. My friend, District Attorney Mike Hestrin. Oh!
We have all kinds of surprises for you. So I want to, as District Attorney Ward mentioned, I want to give you a little bit more focus on what happened here in Riverside County. And then I'm glad Sheriff Bianco's here because he can explain exactly what happened. As I said, or as District Attorney Ward said, in 2021, this individual targeted 8 businesses in Tulare County, was charged and convicted of 14 felonies, got 4-year prison sentence suspended while he went to a recovery center. He absconded from the recovery center and was sentenced to 1 year in a county jail by the judge. He did a few months of that sentence and was released in May of 2022. He came back to his home county, Riverside County, and immediately began targeting businesses again in our county. These are smash and grab operations. He smashes doors and windows to get into a business, smashes cash registers, looks for electronics, and takes whatever he can. He does it in a contiguous geographical area. So in Riverside County, his businesses that he was victimizing were all in the southwest part of the county. He committed 6 felonies. He was arrested. He was charged by my office and convicted of those additional 6 felonies. He was sentenced to 3 years, 8 months in prison for his crimes and based on his long history. Because of the effects of AB 109 and the specific effects that it's had here in Riverside County, he did 3 days of that sentence before he was federally released. At that point, the only sliver of good news is he left our county and went back to Tulare County, where he immediately engaged in another crime spree, as you've heard. So, reason why we're here is we are doing everything we can to protect property in this county, and we simply can't do it. We can't do it. We have to tell business owners day in and day out when they say, I'm getting broken into over and over again, and I have to tell them, I have to have these terrible conversations where I say, I know that the law says you have a right to your property and that we should protect it. There's nothing I can do. The state won't protect your property. I want to give you a sense of some of the businesses that were targeted. Nurse's Boutique, Kentucky Fried Chicken Restaurant, Round Table Pizza Restaurant, New Life Church, Spraying Devices Stores, Stifle Nicholas Financial Advisors, IHOP Restaurant, Walgreens, a Pentecostal church, an optometry center, Avalon Real Estate Management, Intaza Coffee of Temecula, Assistance League of Temecula, The Planning Mill, Tulare County Library, Barrel House Brewing, SP Burgers Restaurant, a charter school, a hair salon, Blend Wine Shop, Bible House Fellowship Church, and the Tri-County Bank. These are the businesses that Mr. Bethel targeted, and I'll finish up in a few minutes, but we need the help of our government officials. And as I said, we're here because enough is enough. We're tired of it, and I'm not going to continue to pretend that this isn't happening in Riverside County. I'm going to turn it over at this point to Sheriff Chad Bianco.
Thank you all for coming for this. Thank you for your comments. I apologize for being a little bit late. What we are here for and what, unfortunately, the 2 counties are experiencing is not a 2-county issue. It is a statewide issue. And Mike was very clear. I'm going to be a little bit more clear, I hope. This is a complete failure of your governor and of the vast majority of your legislators who have absolutely lied to all of you for a political, philosophical agenda. The businesses that you just heard, that is our community. And their philosophical, ideological agenda is destroying those businesses. The reality of us not being able to keep someone in custody, so here's the real reality. And I hope that all of you have enough knowledge of the criminal justice system to know that when someone is sentenced to that many years in state prison, it should be state prison. It shouldn't be county jail. There's a reason why we have state prisons, and there's a reason why we hold people accountable that are going to continuously, historically, victimize our communities, our residences, our businesses, our churches, our public libraries, and we cannot hold them accountable. That person shouldn't be in custody. The reality is he should have been in state prison. For our county jail system, we are forced, because of AB 109, we are forced to hold people in county jail for periods of time that have exceeded the capacity of county jail. And then that reality is I only have a minimum number of bed spaces available in my jail system. So as the state fails to take their own inmates and sends them to my county jail, I have to release somebody. I have to release the lowest level offenders. And unfortunately, that lowest level offender in this particular day was someone that has victimized our entire Southwest County. And we had to keep him in custody to keep other state inmates in our jail, to keep other inmates in our jail that had committed horrific felonies that were either waiting for court or that have been sentenced. And the reality of AB 109, The reality of Prop 47, the reality of Prop 57, which we really need to be honest and say that we were all completely lied to by our state government. They know it is a failure. They know AB 109 is a failure. They know 47 is a failure, and they refuse to do anything about it. Verbally, posturally, they refuse to do anything about it. And that is why we are forced to come to you, and we will start doing this every day if we have to show you the extent of the failed policies in the state of California in our highest levels of government, up to the governor, who would rather tout and say crime is down. Does anybody believe crime is down? Crime is skyrocketing. But he will lie to your face and tell you crime is down. He will lie to your face and tell you that he's eliminated the overcrowding in state prisons. How did he do that? I'll tell you how he did it. He sent them to county jails, or he flat out released them into our communities so they could victimize our businesses and our residents. Our governor is failing. The majority of our state legislature is failing. Our public safety committees need to change their name because they are nothing for public safety. And the reality for me and the reality for our district attorneys is we're fed up. We're fed up from trying to explain to people why we can't help them. Because the reality is I can't control the governor. I can't control the state legislature. You all can. And it's time that we start standing up and fixing this so more of our businesses, more of our churches, more of our county departments are not burglarized by habitual career criminals. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Larry Gonzalez, I'm the police chief from the city of Riverside. I'm also speaking on behalf of all the Riverside County chiefs of police. There's nothing more fundamental to a police department or for a police chief than ensuring a safe environment for our community to thrive. I believe safety it should not just be a luxury for few. Everyone deserves a safe neighborhood to live in, a safe place to have their business at, a safe place for their kids to play in parks, and safe schools to learn at. Legislative changes over the last decade, including AB 109, Prop 47, Prop 57, have made it increasingly difficult to ensure the safety of our citizens, but that does not stop our efforts at the police departments. As president of our cops, I've personally have devoted countless hours and days over the past several years advocating for policy and legislative change at the state level to help protect the citizens of Riverside. Unfortunately, without really gaining significant traction with the legislative bodies. It's frustrating, but we're not going to give up. I'm going up later on today for another trip. As a community and as a state, we must recognize and admit that our prison reform efforts have gone too far. They have gone beyond the intended purpose and have victimized our communities. The transfer of responsibility from our states to our counties for incarceration of nonviolent offenders has overburdened our county facilities, resulting in thousands of criminals walking and often living on our streets, re-victimizing our residents. I'm not here to advocate to turn back the clock completely, but we must make sound, reasonable changes to protect our residents and our businesses. There was a time when theft, specifically repeated theft, was met with a consequence. These days, they have been legislated away, and our community is suffering as a result. If you look at our cities in Riverside, just at our commercial burglaries year-to-date this year, compared to year-to-date last year, we already have a 31% increase in commercial burglaries. I'd quickly like to just highlight two cases that just happened in the last week or two in Riverside. The first is a career criminal, affectionately known as the snake burglar, due to his affinity for crawling through businesses to avoid detection from alarm systems and then to steal from them. He's been arrested and convicted of felonies repeatedly the last several years, but each conviction is met with early release due to overcrowding in the jail system. Most recently, he pled out to 23 felonies and was sentenced to 6 different sentences for 16 months, and he served less than 10 days in jail. He's confirmed to be a suspect in over 60 commercial burglaries in the city of Riverside. That is 60 business owners that we have to look at and apologize to, say we're sorry to, but I know there's many more than that. The snake burglar has numerous warrants for his arrest. But the reality is, with the current laws, the only thing that will stop his thievery will be his own will or his conscience, which I'm not too optimistic about that. We're committed to continuing to investigate and prosecute his thefts, but unfortunately the infrastructure was never put in place to hold him accountable when the codes were rewritten. The next case is a study of a well-known female thief who frequents this downtown area. We currently experience a spike in vehicle burglaries in the downtown garages. Our officers and detectives quickly suspected it was probably the work of her, and it took a couple weeks to obtain enough information for an arrest. By that time, countless burglaries, mail thefts, credit card, and identity thefts occurred in the downtown area. Warrants were written and served, and she is currently in custody on numerous felony charges related to recent burglaries, mall theft, and identity theft. Now, I wrote these notes on Monday, a couple days ago. I did check today, and she is already out of custody again. However, this is not new to her. She's faced over 50 felony charges since the laws were changed. The consequence associated with these crimes is not adequate to dissuade the behavior of her, like many other criminals like her. I have a hard time understanding this. But there's a sentiment among some that any law or policy that incarcerates criminals is misguided and unjust. We firmly reject this premise. The unequivocal truth is, in order to uphold justice and protect communities, there are certain individuals who cannot be let free. Those who make a choice to prey on the innocent must lose their privilege to roam the streets without consequences and further terrorize families, friends, and children. We must, as a community, advocate for ourselves and each other. We do not want more punishment, we want more safety. Safety from being terrorized from habitual thieves feasting on us and on our justice system. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, DA Ward. I want to finish up with closing comments, and then we'll take questions. Timothy Bethel readily admits his guilt in all of these crimes. He's always eager to plead guilty, and he's eager to get his sentence. Why? Because he knows that he'll spend little, if any, time in custody behind bars. He knows that the quickest way to freedom and back to his ways on the street of using drugs and committing crimes is through the justice system, because our system has become a literal, not virtual, a literal revolving door. We can't hold the Timothy Bethels. So what I want to finish up is for my ask. First of all, we need the legislature to pass laws and amend AB 109 so that we can hold habitual offenders accountable for their crimes. Timothy Bethel should be in prison. He should have been in prison after the first few felonies that he was convicted of. It shouldn't take 37 felonies. And he's still not in prison to this day. And he'll be out soon, and we all know that. So that's the first thing. And by the way, I want to mention, in the past when this issue has come up, some of our legislators and our governor has referenced a bill that was passed, a law that was passed a few years ago called the Retail Theft Bill, Retail Theft Law. It's absolutely worthless, meaningless. We can't use it. It requires building a massive conspiracy. It's targeted at gangs that commit these kind of crimes. In this case, it's inapplicable. So please don't let anyone tell you, if you ask questions, that we could have just used the retail theft law. We can't. It's inapplicable. We filed everything we could file against Mr. Bethel. And so for all the other Timothy Bethels, we need a change in the law. Make it after 3 felonies, 4 felonies, 5 felonies. You know, I would take 10 felonies at this point. But at some point, there has to be consequences so I can help the business owners of this county stay in business. Their losses are staggering. And finally, I'll say this to our governor. Come back home, stop the dog and pony show across other states, come back home and deal with what's happening in our state. You're our governor. The people of this state chose you. Come back and deal with the problem. It's a mess. Come back here and fix this. I invite him to Riverside County to meet with us. I know we're not his favorite. It doesn't matter. We'll put all that aside. We'll sit down. Let's talk about how to fix the problems in this state, starting in Riverside County, because it's a disaster. We need help. I said it to you about fentanyl, but this is about theft and keeping our businesses open. If our businesses are gone, our community is gone. We need help. and enough is enough. Thank you. I'll take questions if you have them.